Hey everybody, it's Kathy Bosco from Rethink.fm, the forward-thinking podcast about experience design. Join me and special guests to discuss effective design, technology, and the intersection of helping people and entrepreneurship. From user experience research to product roadmaps, we've got you covered. We've all got questions, so let's get started. Today, my special guest is Nikki Anderson. She helps user researchers go from overlooked to indispensable. You can work with Nikki to sharpen your strategy, communicate your impact, and influence decision making. We're pulling back the curtain today and recording our very first conversation together. Welcome, Nikki. It's so great to get this time to speak with you. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Amazing. Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for having me on today. I'm really excited to be here. And as we talked about a little bit before, pull the curtain back. It's a very important thing, especially in user research. But yeah, very quickly, I'm Nikki. I've been a user researcher now for about 11. We're creeping into the 12. I can't remember exactly when, but 11, 12 years now. I am a qualitative user researcher, but I do mixed methods when absolutely necessary. But I love words so much more than numbers. And yeah, I've worked in B2B, B2C. I am currently a research consultant. And then I also do a lot of content creation, like writing and coaching within the user research space. And I live in Jersey, so the original Jersey, not the New Jersey, although I am American, so my accent is American, but I live in the UK.
Okay.
So
Okay. That clears up a lot because my dyslexic mind was like, okay, which Jersey? And
yeah,
that's
yeah, yeah.
cool.
It's the jersey that nobody knows exists is how I like to recommend it. But every single time people look it up, they love the cows. The cows are like our prized possessions here. They're very cute. I stop on the side of the road and like pet them, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah,
So
yeah.
I do
Um,
recommend looking up Jersey.
I am located in Connecticut,
Yeah.
big farm and cow country here as well. So can really appreciate that. That's
Yeah.
that's great. I know we're going to talk today, like I said in the introduction, about 9 user research impact formulas
Yeah.
because like I'm looking at my notes, like not all research impact fits neatly into metrics, and your formulas are really great. And we have examples for each formula too that you're sharing. And everything that you share is just so valuable. And I really appreciate the hard work you do to share useful techniques and frameworks and formulas with everyone. So thank you so much. And let's dive in. Let's talk about research in terms of customer support load, reducing customer support, because that's expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And as you said, it's really important because I think a lot of people can get down on themselves if they don't have access to things that immediately come up into revenue or round up into something like revenue or conversion rate. And I know that as a user researcher very, very early on in my career, I didn't know to track things like that. I was just hanging out doing research. I didn't know that I had to know how my research was impacting conversion rate. And to be fair, I was at a B2B company, so it wasn't, at least not quickly. And one of the reasons I really wanted to share this is because I don't want people to feel as though their work isn't valuable because it's not tied to revenue. Your work is so valuable and there are so many ways. We just need to get really creative sometimes, but there are so many ways to showcase your impact outside of that revenue metric and any of those other metrics that tie into revenue. So, yeah, thank you for bringing up that it doesn't only have to be conversion metrics or product-based metrics, but the first one, as you said, customer support load is so important because oftentimes customer support can snowball into other areas and cause chaos in other areas of the organization, not only in terms of extra meetings and extra time that goes into fixing these issues, but also in the case as a researcher, you might have seen this a lot, facilitation between teams that might not be too happy with each other. So I've seen a lot of interesting words between customer support and, let's say, product teams. So there's a lot that we can do as researchers to help customer support reduce their load in which they are operating in a space that is not as efficient and not as effective for them. So
Right.
it is a
They're
really important space.
right. They're holding the trust with
Yeah.
the customer, right? And I too have seen different silos where a product team will be pushing, 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 shipping, 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 and updating documentation for the features they're servicing, but not updating the support team playbooks. It's so often overlooked. Yeah,
It
those are
is.
really good points.
Yes.
So I interrupted you. Carry on.
No, not at all. Everything that you said, absolutely. I think that the communications between teams can fall off a little bit, which is totally fine. It's a normal thing in an organization, but it stresses each team, and every stress level that we add to each team just increases that overall stress and can increase tensions. So as a researcher, things that you can do to reduce customer support load. So, really understanding where people are getting stuck, where their pain points are in a flow, where are they dropping off, or where are they having a lot of problems, where are they getting lost? And then going in and even looking at all of the support tickets that you have seen come through, like what are the biggest issues that you're seeing? What are the biggest problems that you're seeing? And either running some tests, or you might not even have to run tests. Like I have seen a large number of customer support tickets where we understood the problem just from the support tickets. We fixed it. Hey, amazing. We just saved the customer support team not only time, but money as well. So we don't have to hire additional customer support in order to deal with a larger amount of issues coming in. We reduce the amount of issues. So it's a really nice way as well to get like the teams working together too and starting to talk to each other.
Yeah, right. And from a customer perspective, they don't have to ask for help. They want to be able to do things on their own. It's such a huge gift to the customer to just enable them heuristically. Yeah.
And
Goes
nobody
without
wants
saying, but I like to mention it anyway.
Yeah, yeah. Who wants to be on an app and be like, I don't know how to do this, help,
Right.
you know?
Yeah. Nobody. All right. All right. So that's really good one. Powerful one, impacts trust, organizational structure. I have a question for you about that before we move to the next one.
Yeah.
Have you seen in your experience instances where a customer might call a problem one thing and the product team calls it something else, and so we just have a information architecture gap? Yeah, common. Yeah,
All
nodding.
over the time.
Heavy nodding happening for those listening.
Oh, sorry, sorry. Yeah, heavy, very heavy nodding. Yeah, it does. That's such a great point. And it is very important for us to, as an organization, and I think researchers were pretty good at this because we understand taxonomies and the importance of language across an organization is to clarify those discrepancies between what a user might say a problem is and how we might define it internally. And then even more, how customer support might define it even differently, how dev teams might define it even differently. So, as much as you can get any sort of consistency across language and labeling as possible, which is really tough to do. It takes a lot of work and it will never be perfect. But if you can do that, especially between customer support and product team, that would be like the ideal situation is having that consistency across those.
Yeah, that's good for me to hear because that's sort of my jam. That's like the problem I solve for organizations. So thanks for that.
Interesting problem.
Yeah, it's a gnarly
Mhm.
one. Takes a lot of teamwork.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep going. This is so great.
Yeah.
All right, clarity that prevents scope creep. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah. So the way that I think about scope creep is when somebody comes to you, let's say a stakeholder, and says, I've had this great idea for a feature. And you're like,
Ah,
uh-oh. Or if you've identified a problem within a user segment and everybody's like, how can AI fix this when it has nothing to do with AI, right? So like a little bit of shiny object syndrome of like really looking and seeing, oh, but this cool thing and this cool thing, or this competitor's doing that and that and that. So really looking at rather than, oh, I have this really great idea that I thought of when I was dreaming last night, all the way to let's create all these bells and whistles on top of something that isn't working. That huge spectrum that you have, it's like bringing it back down to like, what is the core problem that we're actually trying to solve for the user? So where is the pain point or the unmet need happening? And then what are the most simple MVP, like let's go back to MVP ways to fix that so that we are not creating a bunch of features that aren't actually necessary.
Right, right. And your formula is great here on communicating that. I think I overlook those a lot in my own practice. Like we stopped a few things from going forward. I just move on, and we really do need to capture and report it. And your example is 3 features avoided times 50 hours equals 150 hours. And then mathematically you break it down 150 times, I think, 60 lira in your
60
calculation.
pounds.
Oh, pounds.
Yeah.
Okay. 60 pounds
Yeah.
is 9,000 pounds saved.
Yeah.
And that's because in this document, and we'll share this document out in the show notes, right?
Yeah.
And you can see an example and an exact formula. This is so helpful to researchers and so important not to skip. Don't be like me. Yeah.
Yeah. Or me either. I love that you said we forget about the things that we stop from happening. And oftentimes we're so focused on shipping, shipping, shipping. Like, what do we push forward? Things that we stopped, things that we de-risked and deprioritized are just as important. Yeah.
All right, next one is called faster research turnaround. You streamline processes for using better templates and operations and tools, and we might touch AI here as well.
Could do. Yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, so it's exactly that. It's like if you think about, and a lot of people forget about this as a metric. If you think about your entire research process from planning and intake all the way to sharing out and activating your research and even following up on whatever outcome came about from the research. If you think about that whole process, I promise you there are plenty of inefficiencies to fix and plenty of things that you are actually doing better day by day, week by week, month by month that you aren't actively tracking. So even things as what feels small, I'm going to say small in quotation marks for those who are just listening. So small things like, oh, it used to take us 12 days to recruit participants, but now it takes us only 7. That's a that's a huge difference. And it might not feel big for us as researchers because we're like, well, duh, research should be faster eventually. But like being able to save that amount of time is unreal for an organization because not only are you, diminishing cost for the organization, but you're also enabling more research to be done within the organization, which then helps with de-risking and decision making further on down the line. So anything, there are plenty of places within, if you look at each and every one of your pieces of your process, there are plenty of ways that you can say, okay, you know what? No, I don't know what conversion rate this particular study fixed or changed. However, I can see that our intake process got faster. I can see that, I took on a tool in which our synthesis became a little bit more streamlined and a little bit faster, or I created a few different templates that allowed us to create faster screener surveys. Like the sky's the limit with that one.
I love it. I love it. And it can be set up like a baseline. So at the end of the quarter, you work with research ops and take a
Yeah.
look at where you're at. Things are changing so quickly, but it's really interesting to see that needle move too.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think it also touches on being able to communicate the value you're delivering because no one's just going to notice this. Your bosses aren't going to notice it, your leaders aren't going to notice it, but you show that you're doing a thoughtful amount of work for the organization behind the scenes and don't just expect people to understand you're doing that. That's really important. All
Yeah.
right, all right.
It's that
Increase.
it's actually quite funny, really quickly. It's that
Yeah,
vibe. And I always keep this in the back of my mind. Nobody complains when a meeting ends early. They complain when it goes on late. Same thing. Nobody will complain when they get something faster. They will only complain and acknowledge something or like write a review or say something when something takes longer than expected. So you doing things faster and you streamlining and operationalizing things is great for the organization, but a lot of people don't notice it. They notice the things that take away. They don't notice the great things that go in. So it is really important to actively be like, look at these changes that are being made.
powerful. Thank you. And that's just like in UX. If it's a smooth experience, no one's complaining.
Nobody's leaving a review. You get like crickets there. Yeah.
All right, all right. Increased stakeholder participation. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So stakeholder participation in UX generally, whether that's design reviews, whether that's research sessions, anything that stakeholders outside of your function are coming into is a sign or equals a higher research or UX maturity, which is what we're always striving to get to is increasing that maturity level. So if you are a researcher and you see more designers or you see more product managers or devs or whatever function or department you're working with, if you see more of those colleagues coming into research sessions or being a part of a share out or reaching out to you more often, asking you questions, that is a really great sign that research or UX is growing and scaling at your organization. And I think that for me, whenever I see stakeholders attend research, so product managers attend research, whenever I do a share out, it's like I don't have to really share things because they were there and they're like jazzed about changing it because they saw it. And so I do highly recommend trying to pull more people in because it will showcase and demonstrate your value faster and more efficiently and showing that change, kind of what you were saying with benchmarking, where are these operations at, but benchmarking, okay, how many stakeholders participate now versus later on is a really great way to show I am impacting not just like the user research team, but I'm impacting the entire organization.
I love it. Great. All right, roadmap features informed by UX research.
A lot of people hate me for this one because it's it's really hard to get stuff on a roadmap and I totally so this one might not be relevant to you or not. Like same with all of these. Like don't take these as a if I don't do this, I've failed at tracking impact because getting roadmap features that have been inspired or informed by user research onto that actual roadmap can be really, really difficult. However, what I do try and do is understand with my product managers, hey, what are you all working on in the upcoming month, 2 month, 3 month, if we can, 6 months, depending on how lucky we are, and trying to understand how can I bring research that helps them with decision making, whether that means that roadmap feature gets cut, as we talked about, or changes and becomes better, or whether there's something on the roadmap or there's something not on the roadmap that needs to be there from the research. So if you are able to understand, at one point, let's just make the math easy. At one point, we had 10 features on our roadmap coming up, and two of them were informed by research. The more research cycles you do, and the more you pull people into understanding how it helps de-risk their decision making, the more roadmap items might get put on that are influenced by research. So it's like, oh, well, let's not do this AI feature that nobody wants. Instead, let's fix the core product,
Mhm.
right? And actually fix a pain point that came up. So let's say then it goes from two to five features on the roadmap that have been informed by user research. So that's a good way to kind of see as well, is that maturity growing? But this one requires quite a lot of buy-in and quite a lot of time and effort. So don't worry if it's not the first one that changes. Sometimes it is. It depends on how your organization works with roadmaps, but it's okay if this takes a little bit longer. I remember I was at an organization and it took 7 or 8 months before I really saw this change start to come in.
Yeah, those are great cautionary tales.
Yeah.
I would say when you have a global taxonomy and you're able to centralize insights and UX research recommendations and weigh them, you'll begin to have more power here. And that takes time. It takes a more mature organization, like you're saying. Um, but it's so exciting when your stuff makes the roadmap. Everyone gets excited about it, but it's really exciting when you know it's going to make an impact and it's not somebody's just pet project. Uh, so that gives us all job security. I'm going on and on. I'm going to be quiet now. Let's keep going. Very exciting one. Uh, and the next one is confidence to move forward or stop. And we touched on that a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. So it is that clarity for teams to be able to say yes or no earlier on something that they might be working on. So we are often asked in research to make go no go calls. So should we go forward with this or should we not go forward with this? Which is really difficult. And I never call them go no go. I call them like confidence to move forward or not because we can't make if we could do that, if we could promise that if we said yes or no to features and they would be amazing or not amazing and generate all the revenue or whatever it is that people want, then we would be, as you were saying, job secure for life and paid a lot more money. But it's more about how much confidence do we have on saying that this is going to be something that people actually need or that solve their pain point, yes or no. We feel as though we should move in this direction or we feel as though we should stop this. And that then takes down like we talk a lot usually about wasted dev time or even wasted design time. So if you're creating a feature, your team is creating a feature that nobody then uses, not only have you wasted dev, design, and product and potentially research time, you've also demoralized your team because checking and seeing stuff that people don't use or that people actively hate is a really tough thing for people to like colleagues to take on.
It's a great call out.
Yeah, it's sad.
Mm. Okay. And damage to trust or brand equity. This is powerful and it goes under the radar. The metrics are difficult.
Yeah, I haven't found an organization that really like measures trust well across their customer base. There are some ways that you can measure trust, but they can be tied to like CSAT, so customer satisfaction, but there's not one, I have not found one great metric to help with understanding customer trust or brand equity. I mean, you could say, oh, go ahead, tell me.
I've got one for you.
Oh my
Just
goodness.
emerging. I've got one for you. I'll put it in the show notes too. It's a it's an podcast episode that hasn't been published yet. And Trustable, the team at Trustable has an algorithm that they have invented that also includes two personas that you design for and you can measure through. This is cutting edge stuff. So I will share that with you, Nikki. You're gonna love it.
That is like the best thing that I've ever heard
I
because
know.
it's just so hard to like convince people how important trust is with your customer base and how you can ruin that trust by something that's seemingly so small and simple, like almost launching things that make you seem or make the organization seem like they don't really care about the actual problems that customers are having. And it's like there's that meme or whatever that's like, here's a pen, let's put AI into it, like, and it's like, I just want more ink. It's like that same, or like, here's a printer, which never works. I have not found a printer that has ever consistently worked in my life. And it's like the printer has AI now, right? But it still doesn't function. And so I think that it can be very difficult to explain to people how trust then gets broken. And it's not just that trust that leads to things like churn, which is an indicator of a lack of trust, but kind of what we were saying before, how people don't say something if things are good, but they complain if things are bad. That word of mouth can be detrimental to a brand. I have seen brands shut down because they lost trust in something that seemingly didn't seem like a big deal. Lost trust, word of mouth, boo, done.
That's right. It's too competitive of a market to risk
Yeah.
something like that,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it's called the trust value management, and Sabino Marquez invented something called the trust coherence algorithm, which models trustworthiness and predictive financial assets. So it actually tells you the financial metric of trust. Yeah, I'm just learning about this, Nikki. I'm sharing it with you live on the podcast, but this is just amazing, amazing thing. So we'll follow up. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that is. Oh my gosh, that's so cool. I'm so
Yeah,
excited.
it's powerful. All right, all right. Let's okay, we've got more to get to here. So
Yeah.
expanded audience and reach. Somewhat connected.
Yep. Yeah. So a lot of times we focus in on an audience over and over and over again. We have our segments, we have our personas, and that's totally fine. It's really great to understand where your product fits into the market. However, there's a few ways that this could be thought of. Expanded audience and reach, as in we're reaching completely new, innovative markets that we never, and audiences that we never even imagined we might. Or we have done our accessibility homework and we are now accessible for this huge group of new users who could never be able to access the product in accessibility coming in a lot of different forms, anywhere from something like different screen readers, or even people who don't have access to stable internet, or if we're looking at like an elderly population, any sort of population that we might not have prioritized. And it is okay to prioritize certain populations. We have to because we can't build for everybody. However, it's really important to think about that accessibility. And there are now laws made and being continuing to be made, which is fantastic towards this. But it's fantastic how you can reach this audience that you had never even imagined before, and how that opens up an expansion within not only your organization, but like within the entire product. And that can lead to more and more and more products down the line and more innovation.
Do you have experience with, I think the laws are much more strict in Europe,
Yeah.
in the UK. So there are financial consequences for
Oh,
not
yeah.
meeting accessibility. And there are areas in the markets here, like in higher ed. Higher
Yeah.
ed is a very big market and they care a lot about accessibility. And so I guess my question is, have you run into situations where you've helped teams overcome that, plan better for it, open markets? If you could just talk a little bit more about not just the ethical practice, but the legal consequences and why I think there's motivation there to get people to improve their practice with the legal consequences. Have you seen anything like that?
Yeah, there are a lot more legal consequences over here, I would say. As you said, you get fined and you get into trouble if you are not following certain accessibility laws and practices, which in essence, you simple to incentivize people to open up their practices and open up thinking about these different audiences, but it's still quite difficult because the problem is people like routine, right? We get into this routine and where we get into this comfort where it's like, okay, this is our audience, this is our audience, this is our audience, and going outside of that audience is a change. And with change comes more effort, more time, more energy, more money, right? So having even as a researcher, it can be difficult because we as empathetic and as wonderful as we can be as UXers, we also get sucked into like, okay, I got to get this done. This has to be done. Here's my standard screener survey. Here's my standard recruitment criteria. Let's go. So it's carving that space out for the entire organization. But if you are a UXer, carving that space out and saying, who are we overlooking that really could utilize our product in a way that is helping them solve a problem, right? And then thinking about, well, maybe instead of this time only focusing on the population that we normally do, why don't we focus on, in addition, one more population? And I will say is the best way to do this is to start small. You don't have to do a full-blown accessibility study because those can be very overwhelming. But it's like, let's think about a usability test. Okay, here are 5 to 7 people who we normally test our designs with. All right, so then let's test with a more elderly population who doesn't feel as tech savvy, and let's just get 3 to 5 from there, just to see, right? So
I
start
love it.
small. Yeah,
Yeah.
just start small. It's okay to always start small.
I love it. I love it. Oh, this is so helpful to be thinking about all these metrics. We get so buried in just shipping, shipping, shipping. I really appreciate how you make all of your practice something someone can adopt very easily and make decisions about how to apply it to their practice. Um, the that's a rare gift. Not everyone can do that, right? And you do that exceptionally well. And
Thank
uh,
you.
yeah, I think we want to talk a little bit about your program at User Research Strategist and what's going on there. Can you tell maybe people who aren't as familiar with the actual program a little bit more about that?
Yeah, so I've actually recently focused hugely on my Substack. So that's where I write. I'm a huge writer. I love writing. Stephen King is my favorite author. Um, so I primarily am there. And within my Substack, you get access to literally everything that I create. But what's also super cool is I have a private community for my paid subscribers. And that's within that community of paid subscribers where you get access to me. So it's literally, it's not Slack because Slack is really expensive. And the problem is, if you don't pay for it, you lose everything within 90 days. So the history deletes after 90 days. And I wanted to keep that history. So it's similar to Slack with different channels and different threads that you can have. But yeah, that is my main focus with creating content and trying to build a community within that space. So if that's something that you're interested in, and I'm there like every single day, if that's something that you're interested in, is joining that kind of community space and learning, that's where we're at, hanging out.
Yeah, you're making a really positive impact. What are some of the biggest obstacles researchers in your community are facing today?
Oof. AI is a big one.
Yeah. Yeah.
It it's just the perception of it, just how to use it. It's still so new. It's still it's still what it is, which is an intern. It's just a not so self-guided intern, right? It's not an autonomous intern. It is a very dependent-oriented intern that I think sometimes can hype you up a little too much for our own good.
Right, right. The snake eating itself a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say that's a big one. And as well, things like stakeholder buy-in. So getting stakeholders to bring them in earlier and earlier, and then stepping out of the space where we're doing so much lower complexity studies and stepping up and doing more higher complexity studies that are more strategic and organizational and business oriented. So how do we make that step from I'm so sick of doing usability tests in it like to be fair, I love usability tests every once in a while, but doing them every single day, all the time, gets really frustrating, especially if it's taking away from your time to do more strategic research. So, how do we make that leap?
Mhm.
That's another one that can be quite difficult.
Well, those are things that all professional researchers at every level want to keep sharpening that tool in their tool bin. And so if you're looking to improve ways and impact in terms of getting stakeholder buy-in and, you know, leveling it leveling tactical research into more strategic research, which is also how you get that buy-in. I think the community and the resources that you're sharing are the key.
Oh, thank you.
So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for all that you're doing. And thanks for your time. And I'm going to follow up with you because I've got a resource for you. And I'm so thrilled to share something your direction. That's so rare for me. Thank you.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. It was really, really great to chat. And yeah, I really appreciate you taking the time and having me on.
Oh, my pleasure. Bye, Nikki.
Bye.